Dr. Lillard, we just had a very stimulating panel discussion on clinical trials. And they briefly touched on some aspects of disparities and the role of diversity. And I know that you're the PI of an initiative entitled 2020 by 2020. So what is that?
Right. So, that particular initiative is funded by three funders, AACR, Pelotonia Foundation, and a company called M2Gen. It's in support and allowing us to set up an important protocol with Grady Memorial Hospital at first, and we're going to roll it out at other community oncology clinics called Total Cancer Care. It's essentially a mechanism to create a biorepository for newly diagnosed patients or cancer survivors, so we can better identify and create adaptive clinical studies for them to participate in.
What is a biorepository?
Biorepository is not only, it sounds like it's only biospecimens, but it's actually a mix of biospecimens, obviously, but also data. And the data comes from your genomic DNA, okay, what's in your germline DNA, but also what your tumor expresses in the form of what mutations that exist in the DNA, but also the genes that are expressed and how it varies from patient to patient.
I see.
Cancer to cancer.
Right. So I had the privilege, or not, of earlier doing a talk on just showing the disparity and showing the disproportionality of cancer among minority populations. This initiative is unique. 2020 by 2020. Why is it so unique, and who is the target population of focus?
Right. Well, it's been alluded to earlier. There are a number of data sets out there that scientists are using, industry are using to find new biomarkers, new targeted therapies, and even patients that would respond optimally to that. Unfortunately, there's a huge disparity in the number of African Americans that are in these data sets, so the genes that are expressed there. And it's really important for a number of reasons. Obviously, 13% of the US population were only represented 2 to 3% of cases in these data sets that are used publicly or by institutions. Another important fact that's often ignored or maybe not known, compared to our Caucasian counterparts, the somatic mutation, the mutational frequency in our tumors are sometimes 1.5 to 2-fold higher, which means which often correlates with poorer outcomes as well. So identifying and understanding those mechanisms, those differences is really important, so we don't create another health disparity.
Sure.
As these new technologies and precision medicines become available, there'll be a gap if we don't do things now to narrow that.
So that's the promise.
That's the promise.
That's the promise, and that's the progress as well. And so how will this data be utilized?
Right. Well, so the data I should point out, the data belongs to the patient, okay? So there's an informed consent process that's IRB reviewed, Institutional Review Board and Ethics Committee reviews it, that gives us, that allows us to, again, take the sample, sequence the data, aggregate it with clinical attributes, as well as so we can follow them longitudinally to see how they respond to therapy. And then, mining that, we'll be able to better match patients for a particular cancer study. And I could give you an example of why.
Is there an actual example?
Yeah, a more
importance?
tangible example, maybe decades ago, well, a little over 10 years ago, a number of receptor tyrosine kinase therapies became available. One of a more classical one is this epidermal growth factor receptor. Okay, it's often mutated in a number of tumors or not.
Okay.
But it's an important growth factor for cancer.
Sure.
Industry design therapies that target those particular type of enzymes that promote cancer growth.
Right.
And actually, a study failed in the U.S., okay? Because only less than 15% of those patients responded.
Wow.
But when the same study, same drug was tried in China, in countries in Asia, it was actually largely successful. 60% of the patients responded. So that's just even an example of the diversity we see among different ethnic groups, and that's, again, the promise we have, the hope we have with studies like this to identify those new therapies for our community.
Right. And so, it's unique in the sense that the target is solely on African Americans. But then, as you heard in the previous panel, and we see in the literature, mistrust, competing demands, unintended outcomes, lack of access to information, stigma, health insurance coverage have all been cited as barriers to why African Americans don't participate in clinical trials. But you took a different approach with this study in terms of the approach. There's a video, if you will, that the patients will initially encounter explaining the study. Can you talk a little bit, just briefly? And I know we're going to, we're going to watch it, but just talk briefly about that approach and why it was so important, with this particular population to ensue with that approach.
Right. Well, obviously you have a limited amount of time to deal with the patient, as well as the oncologist. So again, this protocol is actually going to make the doctor's job easier, being able to better identify patients that could enroll in the study. Similarly, the video does what we hope will do a better job of educating them about the importance of why they should participate in a protocol like this. It's not a treatment protocol, but again, a way to mine and make better sense of the mystery of the patient's cancer.
Exciting indeed. Thanks a lot, Dr. Lillard, for just that information. I think now we're going to go to the video.
Right.
Ever wonder why people can have the same type of cancer, yet some respond to treatment while others don't? At Morehouse School of Medicine, we're leading cutting-edge research that can help us figure out that problem. And you can help. It's called the Morehouse Total Cancer Care. Once you learn how it works, you'll have a chance to join. Your body is a blueprint for all kinds of unique information like DNA. And your blueprint or genetic information can help us discover why patients who have the same type of cancer and the same treatment don't always have the same result. With Morehouse Total Cancer Care, we're combining patients' blueprints with their responses to treatments. We believe we can better understand different responses and make it easier to identify the right treatment for each individual patient. You can be a key player in our study. By bringing together patients, doctors, and researchers, we can change the way we think about and treat cancer. It doesn't take a lot to participate in Morehouse Total Cancer Care. We'll review your medical records. When your doctor orders blood work, we might take an extra tablespoon of blood at the same time. Sometimes, we could ask for a blood sample when you're at your doctor's office and don't have blood work scheduled. If you're having surgery or a biopsy, we may save tissue that is normally discarded. We may ask to study other bodily tissue during your participation in Morehouse Total Cancer Care. You might be asking, how could I benefit and what are my risks? You might not benefit from research, but you will be helping others in the future. There is a chance that we may match you with other studies and contact you to discuss them. Importantly, there's very low risk in donating extra tissue samples or blood. You should know that by participating, you agree to allow Morehouse School of Medicine to use your personal health information for approved research. Morehouse Total Cancer Care collaborates with outside organizations, and they'll also have access to some of your information, but we always keep your identity confidential. Also know that it won't cost you anything to be part of Morehouse Total Cancer Care, and you will not be given any money or gifts. Think of your samples and personal information as a donation to future cancer care. Your contribution to this study will someday help others. It's your choice to participate. You can withdraw if you change your mind, and it won't change the care you receive or your doctor. Take some time to talk it over with your family or your doctor. We hope you'll consider participating in this study. Enrolling in Morehouse Total Cancer Care is an opportunity to contribute to some of today's most important cancer research. If you wish to participate, the next step is reviewing and signing the informed consent document. On behalf of Morehouse School of Medicine, thank you.